Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast today. This is Inseparable. My name is Logan, and I'm so glad you decided to join us. I got two amazing people right here with us. This is Tyler, and this is Avery Bowman. Tyler Snow and Avery Bowman, that is. They were my youth pastors growing up, as well as one other one, but these two were influential in my life. Tell us a little about what you do, guys.
Well, I am full-time on staff at High Street Baptist Church in Columbus, Ohio. We moved here in September of 2019, and I've been working with the teens since June of 2020. Mm-hmm. I think I was looking back, Logan, you were probably one of our first graduating classes.
Really?
That went through from, start to finish.
Yeah, so. I think going into ninth grade was whenever you came in.
Yeah.
Or like going from 8th to 9th, I think. How about you, Tyler?
Well, I work for the city of Bexley. I work as a water technician. I've been there for a number of years. I'm originally from Knoxville, Tennessee. Married a woman. My wife, obviously, moved to Ohio in 2018. And we moved to Columbus in April of 2021. And I've been helping Brother Avery and Brother Austin serve in the youth group since... was it probably last year?
A year and a half.
I think it was
maybe.
A year and a half, March of last year. So it's just truly been a blessing. I think actually Logan was our first class to graduate while I've been there. So
yeah, because you're the most recent one too.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. Something I forgot to mention to you guys. So your microphones, try to have them, especially yours because it's dynamic, straight on, and same for you.
Straight on.
Probably about 2 to 3 inches away.
Yeah.
All right.
And so that would be the best quality right there. All right. Anyways, so I would love to just dive into some youth ministry, experience with you guys. You've been in it. Obviously, I haven't. I've been in the youth ministry or in the youth group. But for you guys, just explain to me a little bit your story. How did you even get involved in the youth in the first place?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in Mansfield, Ohio, and I always grew up working on a bus route. Loved working with kids. I know my senior year of high school, I actually taught the 4th grade boys at my church, and I really got a heart for kids ministry as a whole back in, that would have been 2012-ish. There was a guy, Jerry Claypool. He was my 4th grade teacher. He just loved on me, invested in me. And I remember making a decision as a 4th grader in his Sunday school class. I want to pass along the joy of the Word of God to kids, just like Mr. Claypool did. And, youth ministry as a whole, after I went into college, I did a year of Bible college. I came home. I traveled around doing some prison ministry stuff. Mm-hmm. And I did a little bit of work with the Rock of Ages prison ministry. And we would go into these maximum security facilities and we would preach. And I'll never forget, I went into a juvenile correction center. I stepped into it. It was a maximum security juvenile correction center in Lebanon. And I was going to preach that day. And the whole time on the way there, my mentor that was kind of getting me into the prisons, he was telling me, Alan Combs, he was saying, Brother Avery, it's a different world. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to see adults that have thrown their lives away. Yeah. He said, but to step into a juvenile facility and see that these kids are never going to see the outside.
Yeah, that's sad.
It was in that moment that I believe the Lord really put it on my heart to go into full-time youth ministry. And I'll never forget, I stepped into that service. There were 38 juveniles under 16 years old, and of the 38, 13 of them have already committed murder.
Whoa.
And they were being tried as adults. I mean, I'm talking 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds. And so really it was then that's when I had the passion of youth ministry, and it kind of was secured in my heart that this is something that I want to do with the rest of my life. And so it's interesting. Youth ministry is kind of, a lot of individuals use it as a stepping stone to become a pastor. Yeah. They use it as a stepping stone to be in the ministry, and then eventually they take a church. But honestly, my heart behind youth ministry is this is where I am. And I, I have prayed about, there's been ministry friends, hey, we got an opening at our church, would you come candidate? And I have never really, I've prayed about it when people ask, but I'm just convinced that youth ministry is where God has me.
I like that. And so were you in fourth grade still when you were involved in the juvenile, or was that
no? So that was right out of high school. I was probably 19 when I went into that juvenile facility.
I was gonna say I don't think a fourth grade would be in there.
No, it'd be wild if they let you in there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I like that because like so many people are just youth ministry, and it's not that they don't care about the kids, but it's just like it can seem that way, I guess, in a sense, because like what their motives are or intentions behind it. Why they're here is just so they can become a head pastor one day, or whatever. But like for you and those who just love serving the youth and like, because this really is the next generation, and there's a lot going against them in today's day and age. The more like just the cell phones and parenting trouble and just everything. Too much
available to them.
There really is. So Tyler, tell me a little bit about your story.
Well, like I said before, I grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee. I attended a church called Temple Baptist Church. It's the same church affiliated with Crown College. And I'd been there whole life. It wasn't until I was a ninth grader. There was one of my best friends, Gary, his mom, Nora, noticed that I wasn't in any type of ministry. And she actually taught a second hour, like a bus ministry. So the way they had the church kids that regularly attended at one place, and then they had, the kids that rode the bus that couldn't get a ride here. They would go like maybe an hour later. And so I started serving in there, and the more, I dove in and was willing to help, willing to be there, willing to show up, willing to, do funny games with them, the more and more I had a burden to help kids. Just like Brother Avery said, if there's something that I can help pass along to the next group of kids, whether it be a life lesson that I went through or just a situation that they're going through, I'm going to try my best to help them. So I served in there in the bus route from ninth grade all the way up until actually when I got married in 2015. Me and my wife then served all the way through until we moved up here in 2018. And then, like I said before, when Brother Avery asked us to help join them and Brother Austin and Leah here at High Street. So it's been a ride.
How did you, when you came in 2018, were you at High Street since then?
No. Or? So when I 2018, I moved over to my wife's hometown in Salina, and we served in a church, Liberty Baptist Church over in Van Wert, Ohio. There I was able to help with the teenage boys every once in a while, step in. And then the Lord, actually, Avery and Holly moved from Salina to here. And what was that, 2019? Yep. And we'd come to visit, and they said, listen, you got to visit. And we're like, fine, we'll come and visit, your family. So obviously it makes the trip easier. Yeah. So we come and visit, and I mean, buddy, the Lord just was working on our hearts. Really? Already working. And it almost like every time we left, it almost felt like we were leaving home. So that's when I kind of knew that this was where the Lord was pulling us towards. That's crazy. And then, like I said, we moved in April of 2021 and been here since.
Okay, that's awesome. So 4 years, huh?
Yep.
That's awesome. So as, youth ministry, I'm sure there's a lot of challenges as well as rewards. What are some of the biggest obstacles that you guys have faced thus far? And what are some of the greatest rewards you've also experienced?
Yeah, so I think the biggest obstacles maybe would be, it took me a minute to figure it out, and still I'm actively learning this, but if you can reach the family. So when you take the title of a youth pastor, instantly you feel like you're going to be working with teenagers and playing games and doing goofy things, and there's a lot of that. But honestly, one of the biggest hidden gems that it took me a minute to realize was that if we can reach the families, if we can be of an assistance to the parents, then we'll naturally reach the kids, because a lot of times if the parents are on board with the youth group, then the kids are going to be on board. And so that's probably one of the biggest obstacles, is figuring out how to bridge that gap. We are here to assist the parents. And a lot of times it might come across like the parents, there's the extreme where they don't want your involvement, they don't want your input, they don't want your advice.
Yeah.
And then there is the dynamic too, where they too heavily want your opinion, they too heavily want your advice, and they don't really want to do as much. So the biggest dynamic, I think, challenge in my perspective would be trying to bridge that gap between making a difference, having an impact, not overstepping the parents and their influence in their life and their role, but still having a spiritual impact on the teens that you work with. If you think about a pastor, their job is to shepherd the flock. And so they're going to get in the flock, get dirty with the flock, look like a sheep, smell like a sheep, then you're probably a sheep, right? And so a lot of times the pastors that don't have as much influence, they're kind of standoffish, off doing their own thing. They're not involved and integrated with their flock. Well, obviously working with teens, especially in this culture, is different from a standpoint of, there's a lot of staying above board, staying above reproach, making sure that you're never alone in a room, different things like that. And, just being oversensitive, I think, is another thing that my personality personally struggles with. I tend to not have conversations with the girls in our youth group maybe at all, just because I've watched men fall. I've seen guys that I've looked up to closely. I've seen them fall. And so I might be a little too careful, a little too much on the precautionary side. But I think that's a dynamic where the Lord has equipped me with a wife that loves these girls, cares about these girls, and she is able to have influence. That is one thing that I do, before we get off into the weeds too much, I will say that there's been days where I just feel like, I'm not having an impact. Those would be some of the downsides, where you work with kids, and you feel like you're just treading water, so to speak, with certain individuals. And it's been my wife reminding me of God's call, my wife encouraging me not to throw in the towel, not to give up. And so I will give a lot of credit to her from the aspect of she's all in, if not more all in, maybe than I am. And so I know that kind of sounds rough to say, but at the same time, it's not that I'm not all in. It's just ministry can get sticky sometimes. And anytime you work with people, and I am a people pleaser too.
Oh,
so
I know.
from that standpoint of like parents, like when they get uptight or I'm better off. I don't want to upset anybody. I'll just, if you don't like me, then I'll just, fly under the radar. I'm done type deal. But you have to have thick skin. You have to be able to kind of push through some of that. But the most rewarding things, without a doubt in my mind, would be something like this: sitting down with a former teen that has a passion, a heart for ministry, a heart for God, to see that even though you might work with teenagers that don't stick, there's teenagers that do. And so I think that would be the greatest reward there is, to even have the opportunity to sit on this podcast with you and to be able to discuss youth ministry, because you care, because you actually have a passion, a heart for the Lord. To me, there's no greater reward. I think about some of our other teens that graduated even in your class that are on fire, are ready to do something for God. And so that's where my heart's at. And I always hesitate because there's individuals from the perspective of ministry, right? You think about ministry, and instantly when someone says ministry, especially in 2025, they know, there's not a lot of money in it. There's not a lot of, and so I've heard people all through my life, individuals, well, there's no money in ministry, or and they pitch it, their sales pitch for ministry is a miserable thing. So then it's like, well, why would any teenager hearing this want to go into ministry?
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know? So I looked this verse up just a second ago. Psalm 78:4, we will not hide them from their children, showing to the generation to come the praises of our Lord and his strength and his wonderful works that he hath done. Look, there might not be finances in ministry, but God has moved some crazy mountains.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that I would want to leave with teenagers today is that serving the Lord, there is no greater joy. There's no greater accomplishment. You might get compensated more at a physical, earthly career, but the heavenly treasures that are sown and laid up, they're worth it all. I mean, God has done so much. He's so mighty. He's so strong. I've watched him even recently work in the lives of families that were on the cusp of divorce. We're on the cusp of things not working out, and God steps in, intervenes. He does only what he can do. He restores.
Yeah.
And so that to me is, there's no greater reward than working.
There's a
with
lot I
teens.
could say off everything you just said.
Yeah.
And that means a lot what you said earlier. But as far as like the parents go, how do you, like either of you guys, how do you, like, especially when you're talking about how they either just don't want your input at all. I feel like that would be, like, for me, a really big challenge, like, and really discouraging. How do you like kind of handle that? Is it like, does it ever get to a point where it's hopeless, or is there always like, of course you're going to do your best, but is there a point where you're just like, I don't know if these parents are ever going to like come around, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just the basics of any relationship, right? And so I think there has to come a point in interacting with parents that don't necessarily want to be open even to your influence on their children. At that point, I think there does come a point where you lose influence. And that could be, you know, parents bad mouthing authority at home. It could be different scenarios like that. But in those situations, in those cases, I will tell you that the only thing that I have found to work, you can apologize a million times. If they write you off, they write you off.
Right.
You can do the high and by approach, but ultimately you have to bathe the situation in prayer.
Yeah.
I know that sounds super hyper spiritual, but honestly, there's certain battles that you're going to come across in ministry that you're just going to feel hopeless.
Yeah.
You are going to feel like you're in between a rock and a hard place. You're going to feel like there's no way to get through. And there's just certain situations that you have to turn over to God, and you have to ask him to fight those battles for you, to clear your name. I remember David, he prayed to find favor, or Daniel rather, prayed to find favor in the eyes of the king.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. The king opposed him majorly. He prayed for favor in his eyes. He lived an upright life. He did what he knew was right, and he had to keep plugging along. And so every little ounce of criticism, you can't be ready to throw in the towel. And I'll be honest with you, that's the number one thing. Brother Tyler knows I have a lot of conversations with him. Miss Holly knows she gets the brunt of it, most of it. But it's like when you have a bad conversation, you come home and you're like, there's no reason to try. You know, I'm trying to reach out to this family. I'm trying to do this. I've sent them 2 or 3 text messages a month telling them I'm praying for them. Ghosted.
Dang.
And it's hard. And I tell her, I would rather just take a secular job. There's no pressure on me. I can just work somewhere, support our family, and just volunteer with a youth group. And she says, no, you can't, because you won't be happy.
That's true.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I think so many times that is the natural cop-out when you're up against opposition, when things aren't going right. Okay, I'm just going to fly the coop. And here's the deal. Ministry gets a bad rap because it's not like at work when your boss doesn't like you and you just tell your boss, like, okay, I don't agree with what you're saying. Have a good day.
Mm-hmm.
When you tell someone in the ministry, I don't agree with what you're saying. Have a good day. Go your own way. Obviously that sounds brutal, and it is. So there's not as much let you down easy, so to speak.
Yeah.
And you have to learn how to forgive, forget, move on, not let bitterness settle in. Think about a lot of the movement of a lot of individuals that were hurt in the church. I think about my personal experience, my wife's personal experience, just individuals I personally know that went through some severe church hurt. Ultimately, it has to come down. I'm not doing this for a man. I'm not doing this for anyone's approval. I'm doing this for God. And so, again, I know that sounds super spiritual, but until you get to that point where you're doing it for God, you're serving, investing in the next generation for God, you're not doing it for the parents' approval.
Yeah.
You're not doing it for somebody to like you. Because here's why. When you do a certain activity just to appeal to the parents that of the troubled teens, then you might appeal them for that 2-hour activity. But then what happens on Sunday when you're no longer at that activity? Things are back to square one. When you do things ultimately to please God, then and you just stay faithful, you stay invested, you stay plugged in. Actually, I had a recent conversation with an individual, and there was an opportunity for someone to go to another church and to take a position. And I was kind of asking some input, advice. And I said, what is the key to longevity in ministry? And a wiser, older man, he told me, he said, just stay put and stay faithful. And honestly, and in your secular job, when you stay put and stay faithful and work at something, it pays off.
Yeah.
When you're bouncing around every 3 months from job to job to job, ministry opportunity to ministry opportunity to ministry opportunity, then you're not going to build the rapport, build the reputation. You have to stick it out. And sometimes sticking it out is going through the hard times, going through the parents' criticism, going through some teens that you say, hey, how are you doing? And they stare at you and don't respond.
Yeah.
You know, those are hard. So I think that is some of the maybe bigger obstacles that you would come up against, but that's relationships in general. So.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Tyler, on any of that?
Well, I agree with Brother Avery. I mean, there's a lot. Obviously, I'm newer to the youth group, so I haven't really, me personally, had to deal with any type of like parental type of situations like that. But going back to what he said about people's approval, if we're not doing it for God's approval and we're doing it for man's approval, you're going to be pretty disappointed.
Yeah.
If you're always looking for the satisfaction of, well, I'm going to serve in the youth because it looks good, or, because certain individual will think I'm, a good person, or I want these teens to look up to me. Well, I could tell you they're going to fail you because we're man. If we keep our sights and our focus on God's approval, He'll never let us down.
Yeah, that's true. God is faithful. His mercies are new every morning. He's faithful every day for everything. And that's true. No other foundation can no man lay but
that's right.
Jesus Christ. He's the only one that'll never fail. So I like that. Yeah. I was just thinking, like, how did you guys, like, I'm curious because I just got in my first year of college. Yeah. So you went to Crown, you went to Heartland.
Yep.
Did you guys both go for like a bachelor's or associates, or?
I went to play ball and didn't make it, so so I may not be the best at this, but I went for a business degree.
Okay.
Let's just say that. That. But I grew up down at Crown my whole life. Well, until here recently, but I had been around that whole, dynamic, and so.
That's funny.
And I did things the hard way. So I went to, right out of high school, I had planned that fall to go to Crown, to go to Heartland. And so registered, signed up, got there. And I actually ended up back home in like 2 weeks. I got a severe case of mono. I know, the kissing disease. But
Is that what you got it from, or was it like saliva?
I don't know.
We won't say.
we can't say. But no, so I ended up back home with a bad case of mono. I was literally bedridden for the majority of that fall.
Dang.
And while it was the weirdest thing, literally I felt like I had zero energy. I got really good at Call of Duty, and literally didn't leave my bed. So then I worked that entire winter, until the next, I guess it would have been August. I went, and I think a big part of it too was we've always joked I was always a mama's boy, and then I was Holly's boy.
Yeah.
I don't do good out on my own.
Alone,
I can't function. So I didn't do great without Holly. I think that played part of it too, that first semester that I tried. And I'll be open, honest, admit that, to anybody.
So did you meet her the second semester? Or?
No, so we met.
Oh, actually, yeah, I think about this.
Quickly, but we met back in 2000. I was in high school. I was 2012, 11. I was 17. She was 15. We actually met a mile from where we're recording this right now at a church across town here.
That's
we
great.
met up for the Smite program. It's like a summer a missions project, basically, and our churches both went to it. And we just stayed in contact the entire time. But back to the Heartland thing, I went that second year. Me and Holly went. We finished our first year. And then the plan was to get engaged. I was going to go back to school. And I tried to go back to school the fall after I completed 1 full year of Heartland. I was going to go back. And again, I lasted maybe 4 days. You could only go 7 days before you could cancel. And then you couldn't get your money back if you went 8.
Oh.
So at 4 days, I was like, look, Holly's not here. She's not going to be here all year. It's going to be a really long semester without her. Year actually without her. And I was like, I'm just not about this. So I didn't like the long distance. And
Tell me about it, brother.
yeah, you're in the thick of it, bro. But yeah, so I came home, and then I just worked, and ended up moving to her hometown. But from that standpoint, I ended up not finishing college till recently. So I took a 10-year break.
Yeah.
And then I went after it again, and I still only finished with an associate's. Eventually, maybe when I'm 50, I'll get that bachelor's. But no, it's something that if you can go and get it done right out of the gate, then do it. But everyone has their own journey. So
True.
I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer.
Yeah. For me, I was kind of like, I don't really want to even take a gap year and being so comfortable at home for a whole year and then trying to go.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't know. Because then I'm really going to not want to go.
Exactly.
And so I decided to just go. But even then, now that I'm home, I'm like, I don't know about that whole going back thing.
No, exactly.
Oh,
yeah, I feel it, man.
That's normal.
Yep, it is.
Yeah. And how long were you there, Tyler? You said 2 years?
No, I was there, I think, 1 full year. And then I didn't go back. I went to a community college, switched majors. I bounced around between majors a lot when I was younger because I really wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do with my life. Mm-hmm. And it was actually the semester after I left is when my wife, Haley, came down. And that's where we met at college down there. And then we started talking and then eventually got married in 2015.
The rest was history.
The rest was history.
That's great. Hey, Abe, didn't you and Holly stay in touch on Call of Duty?
Oh, yeah. So, she was 15, I was 17. The funniest part about this whole deal was she was actually into 2 of my friends, which, so she was into one of them. They talked for a while. Then she started talking to another one. Well, so I would always be in their chat room on, was it Xbox Live or PlayStation, PS Network, whatever it was. So I would talk to her, play with her, and I'm like, who's this, this little girl voice on there? She's 15 years old. And they're always showing me pictures of this is Holly, And so we knew of each other. But when we finally got there to Smite, and where I was a clown the week of Smite, so I was doing like magic tricks and juggling and all this different
I
stuff.
thought you said you were like a clown, like you were an actual
Man.
clown.
I mean, I was a literal clown. Like
Party.
makeup,
clown?
Boots, the whole 9 yards,
that's awesome.
the squeaky nose. So it was too legit
That's
to
great.
quit for sure.
Yeah.
But she couldn't resist the clown, man.
Hey, that's right.
Hey, that's always good.
I'm a clown too. I'm not dressed up, but like I'm a clown for sure.
Hey.
I think we all can be a clown
Yeah,
at some
exactly.
point.
Yeah, some people just got it naturally, like more than others though.
Yep, the big red nose, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it shows for real. But yeah, college was a great experience. Like I'm glad I went.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure if I'm gonna go again. And I was,
Let me ask you this: did you meet your soulmate?
I hope so.
You believe so,
I really
man?
hope so.
Hey, listen.
I really hope so.
When she listens to this, you have to understand, man. You gotta you gotta seal the deal.
Okay, Jed, if you're listening right now.
Exactly.
No.
He didn't go for a diploma. He went for the MRS
That's
degree.
right.
No, here's the thing. Like, I was talking to her about like maybe going back because the long distance sucks. Like,
No,
there's no way to sugarcoat it. It sucks.
Exactly.
And like, hopefully she don't think I'm like releasing too much information, but like she's got 3 years left of school if she sticks out all 4. If that's the case, like say like just whatever, we get married at like in 3 years, maybe 4. So we could do like 3 or 4 years of long distance and we could stick that out, which would be terrible, but would be fine, But the other thing is like I could go back and I could still learn stuff
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
also be with her. But I'm also like, I'm already home and I don't know if I want to like
Right.
follow these rules and all this stuff.
I can tell
And,
you,
like,
me and Avery
Rebel.
both-
Spend money as well.
Oh yeah, me and Avery both did long distance, and I can tell you, it's not fun.
Yeah.
It is miserable.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if there's a way that you guys can be together and continue your relationship, I would suggest you doing it.
I'm doing everything I can. Like, I'm not giving up,
Well, I know too, though, that it is true. Like I was thinking about that the other day. I was talking to one of our college students. He's home. He was telling me he had to come up with like $2,400 a month for his payment. I'm sitting there thinking, that's what some people that work full-time jobs make in a month. How are you supposed to do
That's
school?
insane.
That's a mortgage payment
So
nowadays.
I don't know. I know there's loans and all that stuff that helps, but then who wants to go into all kinds of debt?
I know.
Yeah, so there's a lot to consider. I don't envy our college kids today.
No, not at all.
The dollar doesn't go as far, and so
Yeah.
to understand I do believe though in the institutions. I know that they do an amazing work. That what they teach is super valuable. And so not to go on a rabbit trail of knocking Bible colleges or anything, obviously, I'm a big proponent. But on one hand, there's a lot of an individual plugging into their local ministry that they can learn hands-on. I would say, like, you need to learn the word. You need to understand the word. You need to be able to explain the word, to stand and reason, have the apologetic side of things down. And I will say that's what Bible college is phenomenal for.
Yeah.
And I do think that there's a more practical side. Maybe like the 4th year, there should be more of getting kids involved, serving at
for sure.
ministries.
Right.
One thing I saw happen a lot of times at Heartland, and I'll go on record saying this publicly, but we called them the lifers. It's the college kids that came and never left. They're still there.
Yeah.
Like I was back in 2013 and they're still there.
Bro, I
listen,
immediately just thought of someone from West Coast. That's like the
Exactly.
same
Listen,
boat.
and the same thing is at Crown. There's people that
That's
I
so
graduated.
funny.
I graduated high school in 2010, went in 2011, and those same individuals that I went to college with
Oh my.
are still there.
Yep.
No,
So
I literally
that's the
a
truest.
face and a
statement.
name instantly came in my mind, bro. Like, I
And
I
that's
can't
the
even
thing.
explain it, dude.
Listen, there's nothing wrong. If the Lord really wanted them to be there, plugged in, active, involved, that's
Right.
great.
It's always
But I will say that the majority of the lifers that I knew,
Yeah.
that was not the case.
it's always been it's always like so it's, I would say his name, but it's like, so it's a class of 20 something. And then I'm like, is it going to be 30 something? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
That's so true.
I mean, the one thing I liked about West Coast is like so like there was ministry opportunity. So like everyone had to be in a ministry, like a weekly thing, whatever it was.
That's awesome.
Which is, I think it's great.
Yeah.
Like, especially if you're training for this, you should be doing it now. So mine was athlete outreach at one point, and then once like basketball season was over and football, I did nursing home.
Okay.
And like, dude, that was like, Luke, if you're watching this, bro, like he can testify, like that was the best like ministry ever, dude. Like it was a blast.
Yeah.
Just like, so I'll tell you a story. On Valentine's Day, one of my friends had a like amazing idea to like bring roses to all the like all the women there.
Yeah.
And so you're going to like pass them out, like, you know, so, and like, bro, their faces just light up as soon as they take like get it. And then like I was like watching them like just smell the rose and like just smiling so big. I'm like, dude, we literally just made their whole day by like
absolutely.
this
A lot
out.
of them probably don't have people that come and visit them anymore.
No, they don't. Like, and they're so lonely. And so we did that one time. And then every Wednesday and Sunday, there would be a team that would come and like sing and like hold a service for them. Like someone would preach and they loved it, bro.
That's awesome.
So like I preached once. 2 people ended up being saved like while I was there. I'm not sure about the other teams or like other times, but as the whole time I was there, 2 people got saved. This one guy was 93, bro. Like absolutely insane.
That's
bro.
awesome.
So like, dude's all like, I would not have guessed he's 93. First of all, like he didn't look like he was that old.
Yeah.
But like he was. And so this guy that's on the brink of possibly death, dude, like who knows, just accepted Jesus. And it's like, it's so awesome, bro. Like even at that age, it's so cool. We talked about this the last episode a little bit too.
The gospel is literally for every age. Think about that.
Yeah, bro. It's insane.
It's hard to wrap our minds around because we Americanize everything.
Yeah.
And as Americans, we're so spoiled. But the simplicity of the gospel, I was reading that recently in Matthew chapter 19 about Jesus saying, "Suffer the little children to come unto me." Basically, Jesus was there. He was speaking to the religious leaders about divorce, and they were trying to stump him in questions. Then his disciples, these individuals started bringing little children unto them that wanted them to pray over them. And Jesus basically like rebuked his disciples and said, "No, let them come." His disciples were like, "No, get these kids out of here. There's more important topics." And so to understand and think through the reality of like Jesus took time in that moment to spend with the outcast that the disciples viewed them as. And that's the thing about nursing home. That's the thing about the public school ministries, the athlete outreach. So many different of these ministries is the reason why they're so important is that we have to go out to them.
Right.
A lot of they have the funds, the activities, these nursing homes are doing different activities, but they're not based on the gospel.
Yeah. And even whenever we came in on Valentine's Day, there was a guy singing guitar for everybody.
Yeah.
It was cool, but like, so we just kind of went in the crowd and stuff like that. But it's definitely a good opportunity. And I've got a lot of friends who are like graduating and going to be youth pastors and like all this stuff. Nice. So hopefully this can be a blessing to them as well, whoever's listening.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's just crazy. And I think like when you see like videos of people in like other countries, just worshiping the Lord and stuff, and you just realize like they're worshiping the same God, the same Elohim, Adonai, Yahweh. That's the same like God that we worship. And it's not like, it doesn't matter what ethnicity or what you are, like what part of the world you're in. It's just, I don't know, us Americans, like you're so right. We're in such a little bubble.
Yeah.
And
well,
like
here it's, you can find a Bible, you can find 15 in one room, and then you go to a country like Ethiopia and there might be 15 within a whole square mile. So just, we like Brother Avery was saying, it's so easy for us to obtain it. And so we kind of, we get lax about it. Like, oh, read my Bible. Oh, it's not that big of a deal because we don't suffer the same persecution that individuals over there do.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's crazy. And then like, where is it? Iraq, I know is like really bad right now. There's another one. I don't know, but the crazy thing is like in China, I know is also like there's a lot of persecution going on. And Christianity and the gospel is still spreading throughout that. And it's kind of the same thing that happened in the book of Acts.
Right.
They were scattered abroad and the gospel grew from there. So it's really cool, but there's a lot of persecution in other countries, and I'm grateful, we don't have to experience that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully we don't.
And that's something I feel like we need to do a better job at not taking it for granted. It's easy for us to even be able to sit on a podcast and pinpoint it and discuss it. But tomorrow, when we get back to reality of our day-to-day grind, to realize that, look, we don't need to fall back on my rights, my independence. This is what is deserved to me. And so many times I feel like that's the reason why we don't treat the person behind the McDonald's counter like we should, because that's their job, and we expect them to do their job. And if they don't, we're going to call them out on it.
Right.
Well, they're a soul. And so simply, talking down to somebody just because they're a McDonald's worker or whatever, we're spoiled. And that comes out in our interactions with individuals.
Yeah.
So we got to be very careful.
Right.
Speaking of, did you bring that up for a reason?
No,
Okay.
not kind of, but yeah.
Okay. So speaking of McDonald's workers,
Yes.
I don't like I want to talk about it. Like, I haven't told a lot of people because I don't want to be boastful about it, because like it's all God, like all glory to God, like for sure. So I was in the drive-thru last Monday. So the like full story is I was knocking doors to get some pressure washing jobs, because that's what I do for work. And a big job had just canceled. Like, it was an $1,100 job, and I was like, oh. So I was feeling really discouraged, and I was like already planning to leave. So I'm like, I was out in the neighborhood. I'm like, I'm gonna do these 2 visits, these callbacks, make sure we can get this on the schedule, and then go back. And then she ended up canceling. So I was leaving to go home, and I'm like, dude, let me just hit a McDonald's real quick. Like, I'm gonna get a frappe. Like, So what I get is like the mocha frappe, but I always put a shot of espresso in it. I just feel like that makes it taste better. And so this this girl in the drive-thru is making my drink, and I always try to carry tracks with me, but I just ran out my truck. But anyways, besides the point is, she gave my drink, and I handed her the track. I was like, hey, this will tell you how God loves you and how you can get to heaven. And she was like, ooh. And I was like, ooh. I was like, you sound intrigued. And she's like, yeah, I kind of am. And so I was like, I love to tell you about this, And she was like, so I started talking to her about the gospel. And then like there was no one behind me in the drive-thru. It's like, let's go, dude.
That's perfect.
And then
that's God's never the case.
That's God's
It was
timing.
crazy. So, and then like what was funny is one of her coworkers was like calling her name, and she was like, shh, be quiet. We're talking about Jesus over here. Like, it was so funny. And so she's like, hold on, I'm gonna come outside. She's like pulled up to it's like a rail, where they tell you to pull forward if your order's taking long. And there was like some tables, and I was like, I'm talking really fast right now. I was like, hey, do you want to just go to one of these tables and sit down for a minute? She's like, yeah. So we sat down, and I was able to go through the gospel with her.
Man, that's unreal.
She was on a break and everything.
That's amazing.
It was awesome, dude. And she at the end, what I messed up was like I usually run through it before I ask them, like, you want to do this, make sure they understand clearly. I kind of forgot to do that. But she started praying, bro, and she was like, Lord, I know I'm a sinner. She's like, I know I sin. You're like, I can't save myself. And she was like, I don't know if you can save me, but like, I really hope you can, like, please save me. And she's like, I love you. And and I was like, dude, this is crazy. And I was like,
that is amazing.
And then I was just like, I really hope this is genuine, because like you never know.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And then so we kept talking. I was like, so this is usually the next steps after salvation. I told her about like baptism and discipleship and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I was like trying to find a Bible. I didn't have it in the car. And so I told her, you can download this app. She's downloading the Bible app.
No way.
And then she was like, all of a sudden, out of the blue, she's just like, I'm not going to this party. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I got invited to a yacht party on Friday. She's like, God's telling me no, like, I'm not going out. And that's when I was like, bro, like, that's insane. Like, something just happened.
Amazing.
So when she said that, I was just like, dude, that's like, God's so good, bro. Like,
oh, yeah.
On the way home, I was just like blasting music and like screaming my lungs out, bro. And I was just like, God, what in the world did you just do? Like, I don't know. It's
I was telling the teens about that this morning in Sunday school, because we just wrapped up the book of Acts, and Paul, in every season of his ministry, shipwrecked, bitten, rejected, all this different stuff, he was a faithful witness for the gospel. And that was a divine appointment, that
for
inevitably
sure.
God had for you. And you stepped up and you were bold in your witness. And so we still have the responsibility to be bold in our witness, but so many times when the opportunity arises,
Yeah.
we cop out, we get scared. And so, and I will tell you, fear, fear is the biggest liar, because Satan uses fear to paralyze us from those moments.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so if you would have, just chickened out, didn't think to hinder the track, or, you had about 5 different reasons to bail out of that conversation. And God put that on your heart. And these are the moments when you say, what are the greatest rewards of youth ministry? This would be a greatest reward of youth ministry. Had nothing to do with me. I wasn't anywhere near McDonald's when you had that conversation, but just knowing your passion, your love, your heart for God, that's
Hey,
what's
all glory to God, bro.
No, yeah,
Right.
exactly. And that's the reward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
especially in a day and age where it's rare, you
Yep.
know,
Yeah.
you don't see many teenagers nowadays doing this,
Yep.
and that's a blessing for sure. It makes it seem, like what we're doing here, it matters.
Yep.
one thing I realized after that God kind of hit me with was like, bro, like sharing the gospel is such a privilege. Like it's not like an occupation or like something we have to do. Like, bro, this is like an honor. Like this is the highest like privilege we get, bro.
Right. Yeah.
It's actually crazy. And I was like, Lord, how in the world are you entrusting me and like just letting me do this for you? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not even worthy to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right.
It's just crazy.
And if you weren't there at that time, if you didn't share that, who knows? She may have not heard the gospel ever.
Yep.
Yeah,
I know it's
it's
a lot
possible.
easier here in America, and there's a lot more churches here, but that God specifically had you go to that McDonald's at that specific time for that reason.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, bro. 100%.
Especially like after you lose a sale or something like that, dude. You're
Right.
like, I'm gonna go home and wallow in my misery.
Yeah, I was like,
Exactly.
dude.
I just lost $1,100. I don't want to do
You
nothing.
just
Yeah.
hit it up though, man.
No, it was awesome. Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
So that was an awesome experience. Anyways, I don't even know what we were talking about.
I would say maybe, I don't know, some closing thoughts would be one of the main things for me. Like if someone were to say, if someone is interested in going in youth ministry today, what would you tell them? I would say, number one, I would say, don't do it unless you're going to do it. And what I mean by that would basically be like, be all in. Like if you have a youth ministry opportunity, don't think to yourself that you're going to give it 2 years and then you're going to go a different direction and pursue a pastoring position. Or now, am I saying that once you take a ministry position that you can never leave it? I do believe there's times where God moves you. And if God is moving you and involved in that, then do it. But on the same note, like be all in. I remember my brother, the youth group before me, the age group rather, they went through a different youth pastor every year.
Dang.
My brother had 4 different youth pastors. And can I say that it made a difference in a negative or a positive way? I don't know if I can necessarily say that, but I can say that it was rough on the teens. It was difficult. They have to relearn a new person every year. They have to retrust somebody every year. And so there was a lot of like change in that. And right when they figured out one system and one way things ran, then they're switching it up, doing something different. So if you're going to go into youth ministry, understand like my greatest fear is having a conversation with our youth group and saying, hey, me and Miss Holly, we've decided to take another ministry position at a different church.
Bro.
I can't imagine looking
Yeah.
Bob McGraw, some of
Imagine,
our
bro.
teenagers in the eyes and telling them that after we've loved and cared and been there with them really through a lot of, their adolescence. And so I can't personally imagine that. I tell people all the time, I hope the Lord has us here at High Street working with the teens forever. That would be my current heart's goal. That's where the Lord has me locked in. But don't take something just as a stepping stone to take something else.
Yeah.
Look, if God's calling you somewhere, be all in, locked in. The pay might not make sense. The living arrangements might not make sense. But if you're faithful to God and you show up and you're faithful to his people, God takes care of you every step of the way.
Right.
I can't tell you the amount of times where bills were tight. You get a random handshake at church and bills are paid.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you. My family has never done without. Are we stacking a 401k and all that? No, but God's going to take care when that time comes too. So, hey, if you feel called into youth ministry, you feel like you're able, willing to work with teenagers, go all in and don't look back.
Yeah.
There's no plan B, right? A lot of times people are like, well, what if it doesn't work out? Well, what if it does? Mm-hmm. So go all in. Yeah. Only have a mindset of this is what the Lord wants. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to consider any other options.
Yeah, I like that. It's also really encouraging to hear you say that. Because like, it's just good to know that you're here, or your intentions is that you're here to stay.
Yeah.
And not move on. Of course, if the Lord decides to move you, then obviously follow the Lord.
Yeah.
But as far as your personal goals and intentions is like, you just love these teenagers so much. And that's a crazy perspective, like trying to tell them like, look, we're moving. Like,
no,
how do you even do that? Especially after
I'm
this
telling
many
you,
years?
I've had bad dreams about it. Like
that's crazy.
It's just something that, I have a lot of friends in ministry. And so they'll hear about, such and such a church down the street that's lost their pastor. Would you be interested in candidating? And so there's been times where in your heart, you're like, man, I could be the pastor of a church and that would be cool. But when the dust settles from the novel thought of that, we are so grounded and probably to the point where, it's just, there's no plan B. We don't have a plan B. We're safe here, set here. Are there frustrations? Yes. Right. Anywhere there's certain frustrations, there's different things that you have to work through, different obstacles. But I'm so excited to serve alongside the leadership here at our church, the volunteers that we have. I mean, and that's the other thing too. Like, I give a lot of credit to my wife, but our volunteers that work with these teens, I mean, they take weeks off of work, not paid. They sacrifice their time, their energy, their efforts. Not one time have I done an activity where they didn't show up. They're always at activities. I mean, they're always asking, hey, what can we do?
Yeah.
I'm the kind of person where I feel bad to delegate. I need to do it more. I need to get them more involved. Hey, you got games tonight, and just let them do it. I feel bad in doing that. I feel bad and I feel like I'm pawning stuff off. But here's the thing. If I gave them, I would never, if I didn't want to, I wouldn't have to teach. I wouldn't have to. These guys are willing. They're more than capable. They put a lot of time and effort into their study when they do teach. And so there's not a youth group in America that has better helpers, better support, better workers. And that's something that I want our church family to know. I want individuals that are pursuing youth ministry, hey, get the right team that comes behind you.
Yeah.
Because it truly is a culture. It is something that you cast your vision to them, and then they have to help you carry out your vision. Well, if they're rowing in a different direction, then obviously it doesn't work. So I'm beyond thankful for the help, the support that God has given in the youth ministry. And I'll say, even a youth ministry at a small little church that has 5 kids, still get another couple, because here's why. There's days when it gets discouraging, and they'll bring a different perspective to the table that you didn't necessarily recognize or consider, and love those 5 kids like you had 600 kids in your youth group.
Yeah, that's good.
That is good.
That's good. Did you guys want to keep going, or you just want to?
I think I'm.
Yeah.
That's up to
Whatever
you.
you
I'm
want.
good, but
Yeah. I will say, obviously, I'm one of those helpers, so I do appreciate hearing it from the youth pastor.
You're the best in America, Tyler.
We are the best in America, and we have the best youth pastor in America. So if there's any question,
Yep.
now the record has been set straight. But it's been a thrill and an honor and a pleasure to be able to help serve along. He's my brother-in-law, so obviously we're family, and there might be times where there might be a beef or whatnot. But when we come together and we can be in one goal, and that goal is to pass on what we have been taught and know, and help these teenagers not only grow up into the adults that they're going to become, but to grow into the Christians, that will be in the church, growing up. And for anyone that is considering, maybe not full-time ministry of being a youth pastor, but someone that is considering, they're not plugged into a ministry at their church, plug into the teens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If you can, any life lesson that you can send and instill into a young adult is only going to benefit them more. So
for sure. I just want to ask you guys, like, as far as a spouse, like, we all know, like, someone who's been in Florida, and he hasn't been married. He's getting married, but he's been a youth pastor without being married. Like, I'm not gonna say you can't. What's the, like, not just what's the benefits, like, why is that important? And, like, do you think you can do that for so long with being single, or would you not recommend it for a long time?
I personally don't know how that dynamic would work. I've never personally done it, but I can. Some of the obstacles that I would personally see, the challenges would be obviously counseling girls. You're not going to be able to do that. You would have to work through your pastor's wife, and basically have her lead those conversations and interactions. And also, teenage girls naturally are kind of boy crazy. They're kind of flirty. And so anything that you say in the slightest way to somebody of the opposite sex today can be misinterpreted.
Yeah, very easily.
To me, it would be one of the biggest reasons why, if I was single, that it would be a challenge or an obstacle. Obviously, there's a lot of precautions. There's a lot of helpers and amazing individuals that can step up and help and alongside you in the youth group. So from that standpoint, yeah, I think that they definitely, it's doable, but it wouldn't be like my first choice. I wouldn't be recommending, like, my boys when they are 19, 20 years old, if they would come to me for advice on taking a position at a church, if they weren't dating to marry, if they weren't in a serious relationship, I would highly probably discourage it if they were just kind of single, because let's be honest, every single guy wants a girl, and then you have on top of that some boy crazy teenage girls, and so it's kind of a recipe maybe for something to happen that doesn't. So, but that would be 100% a personal preference. I wouldn't look down on anybody that went and did one way or another. So that'd be my deal.
I agree.
I also wanted to ask you guys, like, as far as your families and parenting goes, like, I've seen all these reels and stuff that's always like, like, if you involve your kids, it'll slow you down, but, like, maybe that's the point. Is there ever, like, days where you feel that, or
I say the number one thing that I feel is my boys. I got twins. They'll be 7 in September. My middle, he just turned 4, and then our newborn is 13 weeks. And so I basically, like, this summer we're going to the Arise Youth Conference, and we're bringing our entire family with us. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a two-edged sword. I've always looked at that as our kids will get in the way of the events and things going on with the youth group. But at the same time, I don't want my boys to ever feel like I'm prioritizing the teens over them. And so our number one ministry ultimately is our family. And so there is a lot of guilt from my end a lot of times where I feel like I put more effort, energy into church people, the kids, than I do my own family. And so I that's something that I'm, again, hypersensitive to because of some things that I've seen in the past with other men in their ministries. And so I'm kind of on the side where if we're going to have a teen activity, we had a pickleball tournament a couple months ago. They were here. We do teen activities on Friday nights. We include the boys. And here's the thing. Our teens love our kids.
Oh, yeah.
They love Brother Tyler's kids, Brother Austin's kids. And so they basically treat them like a little brother or a little sister. So from that standpoint, I think the balance of if we're going to do ministry, we're going to do ministry as a family.
Right.
If that's a problem with the leadership or with certain parents, then I am sorry. But that's kind of the approach that I've taken that, you know, my family's my number one ministry, and I am not going to lose them for your kids. So, again, we don't allow them to go crazy, be in the way. We don't allow them to completely take over an event, but they are going to be there. So,
And what better place to raise your kids than
exactly
at a youth group?
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And they get to look up to these teenagers, and like you said, the teenagers, you know, see them as their little brothers and sisters. So it's it's been a blessing.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy because all three of the youth leaders just had newborns.
Yes.
So wait,
Was not planned.
so you and Holly had yours first, right?
Yep.
Your baby, and then it went
5 days later,
5 days
Austin
later,
and
Austin, Leah.
And then ours was April 17th. So like 2.5-3 weeks after Austin and Leah's.
That's insane.
it was.
I just remember being at college and I was like, no way. And then I was like, no way. I was like, what? No way. Then too.
Yeah.
And it was like that for us too, because
Yep.
we normally do an all-nighter. The all-nighter got interrupted rather, because we had chaperones for the guys. We had no chaperones for the girls.
Right.
You know, no one can stay up all night when they're almost 40 weeks pregnant.
Oh yeah.
So it was a unique season for the youth ministry. But again, even in that's what I'm talking about having the best youth workers in America. These ladies had their babies and then, you know, took barely any time, still showing up to class.
Maybe a week off.
And so,
Wow.
you know, from that standpoint, they just, and it wasn't a chore. I'm sure it was tough getting up, getting ready, getting moving. But they show up today. Even it's been, you know, 13 weeks now, 11 weeks for Brother Austin and Miss Leah. Brother Austin, I was teaching, and little Ivy started crying a little bit. He just stands up and rocks her, steps out of the classroom. Like, they just make it work. And so there for a while, I was joking with the teens that we were going to start a nursery in the youth room. And it was they were going to get kicked out, but
It's like there's no way that's happening at like any other youth group, bro. Like the odds that are so slim.
it was wild.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
But we truly, I mean, us
just-
couples, we do life together. I tell people all the time, like, I feel like I have very few adult conversations, not like in a bad way, obviously, but with people that are over 18. I'm always talking to teenagers. I'm always interacting with teenagers. And I wouldn't have it any other way, to be honest.
Yeah.
One thing I will say that you miss out on working with teenagers is life groups with people your age, like doing life with other parents that have kids. That's maybe an area that we miss out on. But again, there's ways to do that outside of youth groups and different things like that.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a good conversation.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate you guys
Absolutely.
coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having us, man. I'm excited to tune in and watch the episode. I hate hearing myself, so
Yeah, everyone does, bro.
it's just the way it goes. But
I have this friend from New Zealand. He's my best friend from college. And so like his accent, bro, and like his voice is deep. So I had him, my brother, on the podcast, dude, and I was just like, this guy's voice, like no one can not like his voice, bro.
No,
It was
exactly.
so perfect.
That helps.
awesome.
It was
sure.
great.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you guys.
All right, bro.
Yeah.
Thank you,
We
man.
appreciate it.
And so, yeah, always. And so, well, that's all we got for you guys today. Hope you join us next time. Have a good day. Peace.
See ya.
See ya.
Peace.